The Hab-child kneels on cracked playscrete, chalking ration tallies beside a guttering shrine candle. 14 protein bars, 6 water tablets, 1 Medicae patch. Each mark represents a father tithed to the Astra Militarum 8 months past. The chalk dust settles like ash from burned love letters, the same grey residue that accumulates in Hive blocks, where nothing uncounted survives. In the Imperium, love is not private. It is measured, catalogued, and conscripted into the war economy, alongside promethium and grain. Affection becomes a resource subject to levy, audit, and punitive seizure. Bonds transform into ledger entries. Grief becomes administrative data. The promise is brutal. Attachment fuels endurance. The accounting is hidden in bureaucratic columns. This inquiry traces that conversion across institutional scales, familial bonds in tenement blocks, comradeship at trench edges, piety in incense-thick chapels, romantic attachment in barracks and manufactoria. We will examine how the administratum's directives penetrate the day's last candle, then widen scope to rival polities, xenos and heretic systems that weaponize care through different liturgies, alternative logics. The bureaucracy makes love enforceable through Administratum Edict 4/117 on kin accountability. Families bear legal and financial liability for conscripted members' battlefield conduct. Desertion triggers housing forfeiture. Cowardice reduces spousal rations. Insubordination suspends burial rights pending penitential quotas. A mother's food allocation, a grandfather's grave permit, a sibling's work shift assignment, all indexed to private decisions made under screaming sky. Then, the widow's tithe remission schedule. The Munitorum's compensation formulae are meticulous. Dependents receive adjusted rations and fuel chits scaled to exemplary sacrifice. Die in approved posture, and your family eats. Die poorly, and stipends recede to fasting days and extra shifts. Within the ledger, love generates dividend streams, volatile, taxable, reviewed quarterly. To sustain those still breathing, voxcasters carry child prayers to frontline positions. Thin voices intone sanctioned affection across the void. Come home, father. Hold position, mother. The Emperor is our hearth. The Homefront Imagery Unit curates these transmissions with industrial precision, editing authentic emotion into useful propaganda. Clerks splice pure tones into trench soundscapes, talismanic murmurs between shell bursts. The question we will follow concerns whose love travels these channels. Across stellar distances, astropaths stitch meaning into warp currents, souls burned and blinded, so human words can traverse space. They transmit deployment orders and lullabies with equal mechanical obedience. We will return to their choir stalls, to the cost of voices belonging to everyone and no one. On Vellum Delta, banners await laundering for the Founders' Jubilee. Parade exemptions receive official stamps, family marches enter rehearsal, quotas face temporary forgiveness in exchange for photogenic devotion. Celebrations are logistics by other means. The child completes her tally and extinguishes the candle. Her chalk-stained fingers have transformed private grief into requisition documentation. Tomorrow, clerks will process casualty reports, triggering widows' tithe calculations, according to predetermined formulae. At mid-shift, the queue coils past the Auspex gate, citizens clutching lineage sigils and ration ledgers like devotional talismans. Inside sub-level gamma of the Administratum Complexus, parchment crackles between cogitator banks, while skull servitors ferry stamped vellum through humid corridors thick with incense and industrial lubricant. This is the Imperium's most intimate bureaucracy, an office that tabulates affection with ledger book precision. Clerk Adept Morven processes bloodline documentation at Workstation Theta 7, her cogitator screen displaying genealogical matrices spanning 17 generations. Marriage certificates cross-reference with military service records. Birth registrations link to casualty reports transmitted via astropathic relay. Kinship networks map across entire Hive populations, each family tree transformed into a liability chart where love translates into enforceable quotas under Administratum Edict 4/117. Daily function operates through meticulous tracking of genetic lineages to assign collective responsibility for individual conduct. When Private Corvain deserts his post on Mordian 7, algorithmic protocols identify his bloodline across 3 Hive sectors within 6 hours. Form 67 Theta, Kin Liability Assessment, syncs each dossier to the regimented relative's service record. One desertion raises a cousin's rent by 14%. One citation for gallantry unlocks a half case of Grox protein for a grandmother's monthly allocation. Reunification permits lie in lacquered trays, blue-sealed documents promising furlough for exemplary sacrifice. Morven processes applications accompanied by battle honor citations, families requesting temporary leave for wounded sons or decorated daughters. Statistical analysis reveals brutal scarcity. Approval rates hover at 4%. Most permits expire unopened. Some arrive with blood stains that clerks catalogue as field authentication. Control operates through systematic forfeiture. Housing assignments flex with battlefield conduct reports. Ration classifications climb or collapse based on after-action evaluations. Burial rights wait in administrative escrow until families meet loyalty totals calculated by sub-department actuaries. A soldier's cowardice under fire triggers automatic penalties affecting 3 generations of dependents through interconnected housing, Medici, and food allocation databases. The survival tax yields a secondary economy of desperate collaboration. Mothers slide heirloom lockets across Morven's counter for administrative leniency, a delayed forfeiture notice, a favorable interpretation of ambiguous conduct reports. She adjusts timestamps, reorders audit queues, pockets a devotional bead as processing fee. The black market thrives in altered lineage sigils, bleached seals, recut identification rings, data plaques with coaxed subcodes. When discovered, penalties cascade through confiscation, housing downgrades, and work gang reassignment. Grief becomes paperwork requiring official validation. Mourning follows prescribed protocols. Form 12. Veil authorizes wailing periods. Sepulture stamps enable bone allocation. Quota waivers permit funeral oil expenditure. Morven processes death certificates that determine whether families may hold rights or face pending review status indefinitely. Some corpses remain unburied for years, while clerks verify loyalty ratings through archived battle reports. Currently, Morven processes Velum Delta's founders' Jubilee preparations. Family March parade exemptions grant temporary relief from kinship penalties in exchange for photogenic devotion. The Homefront Imagery Unit submits detailed requirements, specific grief expressions, standardized banner designs, curated displays of acceptable suffering. A red-stamped exemption list accumulates, names selected for prominent parade positions, their files marked for post-ceremony review. The same cogitators calculating widow stipends now generate marching orders and camera angles. Whole families practice public piety to balance private ledgers. The mourning procession winds through Hab Block Tertius, carrying relics wrapped in devotional shrouds. A grandmother's wedding ring blessed at St. Irena's shrine. A child's first tooth offered to the golden throne. A father's guard-issued dog tags transformed into prayer beads through ecclesiastical benediction. The imperial creed operates as love's administrative apparatus, systematically redirecting horizontal bonds between individuals into vertical streams flowing toward the emperor's radiance. Daily function transforms private devotion into hierarchical obligation through liturgical structure. Shrine processions feature family relics threaded into collective displays, grandmothers' aprons stitched with unit numbers, sons' dented canteens, daughters' oath signets catalogued as proofs of loyalty. Child choirs rehearse vox prayers for transmission to distant battlefields, slim throats trained to articulate hope at prescribed tempos. The martyrology of St. Irena cycles through evening readings, where immolation represents the emperor's loving embrace, combustion as consummation, flame as divine intimacy. Control operates by sanctifying vertical attachment, while subjecting horizontal bonds to ecclesiastical oversight. Love directed toward the emperor receives liturgical celebration. Love shared between individuals faces examination for heretical autonomy. Weddings require confessor audits, ensuring affection will not compete with the creed. Parents register naming rights, selecting saints whose virtues align with local tithe obligations. Unauthorized intimacy produces penances calibrated to redirect feeling upward. Extra vigils, public recitations, donations of heirlooms to parish reliquaries. The survival tax emerges as believers trade private intimacy for sanctioned zeal, finding safety in collective rather than personal devotion. Sister candidate Thessaly exemplifies this exchange, kneeling before the altar to recite daily renunciation. No kin but the golden throne, no hearth but duty, no kiss but flame. Her biological family receives reduced rations as penalty for spiritual abandonment, while she gains protection within ecclesiastical hierarchy. Widows become valuable as exemplars, escorted to front pews, where tears are rationed into camera-ready moments, promising safety for the living. The Homefront Imagery Unit completes this circuit through permanent offices within major parishes. Operators select photogenic displays of devotion for mass distribution. A child gripping a cracked aquila, a miner's hands lighting vigil lamps, the sister candidate's vow captured precisely when her eyes extinguish softness. Vox technicians record choir performances, then edit voices into morale loops with minor pitch corrections to idealize sincerity. For Velum Delta's approaching Founders' Jubilee, camera servitors position throughout St. Irena's sanctuary, recording rehearsals of sanctified immolation according to detailed propaganda requirements. The parish provides raw emotion. The unit provides form, reach, and editorial doctrine. Spiritual cost hides in plain chant. When love becomes stairs climbing toward the throne, the steps replace the destination. Citizens feel safe inside sanctioned ardor, surrendering autonomy for collective warmth while their authentic voices are fragmented across transmission frequencies. Brother Sergeant Thane arranges memorial beads in the Reclusium vault, each obsidian sphere carved with a fallen battle brother's sigil. 47 names from the 3rd Company's roll of honor. His transhuman fingers, too large for civilian tools, too hardened for gentle touch, position each bead with liturgical precision. 23 years passed. Tithe riots consumed his birth world. His family died in Hab-block fires. He processes this as tactical data requiring no emotional response. The Adeptus Astartes resolves the problem of human attachment through systematic amputation and replacement. Recruits enter fortress monasteries, bearing names, bloodlines, and nascent affections. They emerge as space marines with battle designations, gene lineage, and fraternal bonds forged through neurochemical modification and shared suffering. Love is not destroyed. It is redirected into a single permitted vector. Daily function operates through hypno-indoctrination that strips memory while implanting chapter catechisms. Names disappear, battle honors accumulate. Birth families become statistical abstractions. Gene seed implantation creates literal kinship with Primarch lineage, manufactured blood relationship, replacing accident of birth with engineered loyalty. Apothecaries monitor hormone regulators. Chaplains audit confessionals for residual pre-ascension sentiment. The body itself enforces proper devotion. Control mechanisms permit intimacy only along fraternal lines. Squad loyalty receives liturgical celebration through oath-binding ceremonies. Company pride manifests in competitive martial excellence. Primarch veneration provides paternal focus for redirected filial devotion. Romantic and familial attachments face neurochemical suppression through surgical modification and psychological conditioning. The uniform legalizes specific love, steel bond, oath bond, the affection that kills cleanly and keeps marching. The survival tax demands complete sacrifice of civilian emotional range in exchange for transhuman brotherhood and existential purpose. Astartes trade tenderness for certainty, ambiguity for doctrine, the messy elasticity of human kinship for geometric loyalty that never bends. They gain clarity, purpose, intimacy of shared danger. They lose the ordinary seasons of mortal life, the awkward, the slow, the unresolved. Love persists but in iron forms, expressing itself through liturgical violence. Honor duels commemorate fallen brothers through ritualized combat. Memorial vaults house relics civilians may never touch. A brother's bolter, scarred pauldron, final words recorded in battle cant. Grief transforms into vengeance oaths sworn before chapter banners. Thane's beads represent 47 brothers, whose names he recites during daily prayers, while his birth mother's name produces only neurochemical void. At the system's limit stands the Black Shield, Astartes who paint over heraldry, surrender names, and petition to serve as ciphers. Whether from shame, penance, or the need to sever every thread, they become weapons without lineage. Namelessness perfects Astartes' logic. No kin to endanger, no banner to disgrace, only the work. The wider Imperium cannot replicate this complete severance. Most citizens remain tangled in blood and letters, requiring different instruments of discipline. Commissar Thala opens the letter tin at dawn muster, parchment crackling between his fingers. The trench line falls silent, except for distant artillery. Private Kellum, your daughter Mira reports successful ration collection. She lights candles for your squad's safe return. Kellum's grip tightens on his lasgun. Above the parapet, a reward banner displays kinship names in stenciled script, not battle honors, but family roles where performance determines who eats. The commissariat perfects what space marines abandon, weaponizing residual family bonds among soldiers who retain dangerous capacity for desertion and doubt. Daily function operates through systematic emotional leverage. Each platoon maintains a role of attachment, dependence, addresses, liability status cross-referenced with service records. Public letter readings precede assaults and follow retreats. Patriots' remission schedules promise specific benefits. Correct death increases family rations by 12%, grants burial priority, unlocks Medicaid access for surviving relatives. Paperwork makes death productive. Control mechanisms operationalize Edict 4/117 at bayonet length. Desertion triggers automatic penalties, affecting 3 generations of dependents within 6 hours of report transmission. Ration classifications drop, housing downgrades, burial rights enter administrative suspension. In recidivist Hive cities, hostage districts consolidate relatives of unreliable regiments under curfew and surveillance, their welfare indexed to distant battlefield performance. A soldier's cowardice becomes his grandmother's eviction notice. The survival tax emerges as desperate barter. Guardsmen convert pay chits into liability offsets, purchasing time before penalties reach the HAB block. Squad leaders pool resources to rescue widows from forfeiture after botched withdrawals. Officers falsify casualty reports, upgrading panic to tactical withdrawal, backdating wounds, protecting families from penalty cascades. Black markets thrive in forged commendations and memorial citations that transform military failure into bureaucratic success. The moral cost reveals itself as the uniform colonizes the hearth. Letters home require commissariat screening. Intimacy becomes surveillance when affection depends on battlefield performance. Soldiers learn to perform devotion for administrative audiences, while authentic feeling atrophies under constant examination. A sergeant requests leave for his pregnant wife. The commissar shows him stamped housing forfeiture notices. The man shoulders his kit, climbs the ladder, believing he chooses courage while obeying an accounting system. Vox operators splice child prayers into trench communication loops, thin voices threading between mortar impacts. "Hold position, father!" The Emperor guards our sleep. Technical analysis reveals professional editing, pitch correction, background noise removal, emotional timing, calibrated for maximum psychological retention. The audio serves as manufactured nostalgia, holding men in firing positions through processed innocence. The transmission tag reads Velum Delta, but the same child's voice has followed this regiment across multiple deployments. The voice sounds familiar, universal in its vulnerability. In a Hive nursery, a caretaker hums while her subtly elongated fingers swaddle an infant. The child quiets as if hearing a second lullaby beneath the audible one. A low, reassuring thrum. Where the Imperium offers love as transaction, the cult provides it as sacrament. Infection begins with intimacy. The patriarch's kiss deposits microscopic organisms that rewrite blood with doctrine, creating kinship immune to administrative interference. Origin operates through cellular restructuring disguised as tenderness. A father's embrace seeds children with genetic modification. A mother's milk carries transformative proteins. Within days, devotion shifts from the golden throne to something older, hungrier, promising what imperial bureaucracy systematically denies: unconditional acceptance and mutual protection through biological imperative rather than paperwork compliance. Daily reality transforms ordinary spaces into liturgy. Work gangs become prayer circles, where mining shifts serve as communion rituals. Nurseries function as recruitment cells, where hybrid children practice imperial catechisms while absorbing brood cant through genetic memory. Family meals incorporate sacramental elements, synthesized pheromones, cellular nutrients that deepen integration with each shared portion. The patriarch's image replaces ancestor portraits, draped with cloth stitched in family names. Control operates through perfected fatherhood. The patriarch embodies paternal love without imperial conditions. No quotas, no liability assessments, no forfeiture threats. His psychic emanations coordinate work shifts while promising transgenerational unity. Unlike Edict 4/117's contingent kinship, brood loyalty functions through genetic imperative. The family that prays together cannot be administratively separated. The survival tax pays dividends. The imperial system cannot match without destroying its own hierarchies. Cult cells pool wages, erase debts, provide medical care and housing assistance. They shelter deserters from kin liability penalties by smuggling identities off-ledger. Where commissars read letters for surveillance, the cult returns actual people. Mutual protection hardens into quiet power. Predatory clerks find their fingers broken. Exploitative landlords discover locks replaced. The moral cost emerges gradually as autonomy dissolves into species-level infiltration. Love narrows to the brood while being weaponized against baseline humanity. Infected parents feel authentic tenderness for hybrid offspring while planning neighbors' slaughter. The vocabulary of care persists: father, mother, children, while meaning inverts toward xenocidal purpose. Every gesture of protection serves planetary assimilation. On Velum Delta, cult scribes forge reunification permits with administrative precision, accessing the Founder's Jubilee through bureaucratic infiltration. The documents pass inspection because infected clerks understand imperial procedures from within, possessing official seals and processing protocols. Family march exemptions become operational vectors as the brood positions itself within sanctioned celebration. In preparation chambers, a hybrid child practices imperial prayer forms. Hold position, father. The Emperor guards our sleep. The voice matches archived transmissions used in trench vox loops, identical in cadence and emotional timing. Technical analysis cannot distinguish it from approved morale broadcasts without access to master archives. The convergence approaches as competing forms of weaponized love prepare to collide in public ceremony. Incense blooms across Sector Gamma Plaza as tens of thousands gather for the Founder's Jubilee, ceremonial banners unfurling between hab spires like devotional shrouds. Children adjust family march sashes stamped with administrative exemption sigils, their names verified against kin liability ledgers. St. Irena's reliquary cart creaks forward under brass fixtures that catch ash-bright morning light. Vox speakers broadcast familiar child prayers. Hold position, father. The Emperor guards our sleep. The voice carries crystalline clarity across ceremonial routes, the same transmission that sustained regiments through multiple deployments. Camera servitors from the Homefront Imagery Unit whir to operational status, lenses focused for tear glisten and trembling hands. This is devotion arranged for broadcast, grief choreographed according to detailed propaganda protocols. Overwatch positions coordinate through separate command structures. PDF squads maintain nervous vigilance from rooftop emplacements, scopes tracking crowd density, while commissars audit compliance through binocular surveillance. Their targets include faces familiar from ration lines, neighbors, relatives, citizens whose paperwork validates their presence. Sister candidate Thessaly adjusts her promethium sensor beside the ecclesiastical choir, their immolation hymn rehearsed to coincide with the reliquary procession's climactic moment. Orders tangle against optics as multiple agencies pursue conflicting objectives through identical ceremonial space. The cult executes with industrial precision. Signal timing synchronizes to the hymn's crescendo as broodkin advance through family clusters toward the reliquary route. Their forged reunification permits pass inspection because infected clerks understand imperial bureaucracy from within. Official seals, processing protocols, administrative signatures indistinguishable from authentic documentation. Children wearing exemption sashes blend seamlessly with baseline families, while emanating psychic coordination that humans interpret as festive excitement. From beneath a ceremonial palanquin draped in family banners, the patriarch emerges, his presence triggering genetic recognition among infected participants. What appears as spontaneous devotion operates through biological imperative. Hybrid children genuflect, while their neighbors interpret exceptional piety worthy of documentation. Imperial forces hesitate at the critical moment. Commissars reference Edict 4/117 protocols while scanning for clear targets among citizens whose exemption lists validate their attendance. The crowd's intimacy functions as ablative shielding. PDF snipers acquire targets, but pause when scopes reveal children wearing official sashes alongside obvious mutants. Familiar child prayers echo through Vox transmission, creating cognitive dissonance between perceived threat and administrative compliance. The hymn climbs toward its flame as hesitation fractures response coordination. Sister candidate Thessaly breaks the paralysis. Her sensor ignites. Oil coughs into ribbon flame as she charges toward the palanquin's shadow, shrieking, "In loving embrace!" The crowd splits, closes, then breaks completely. Panic moves like current through packed bodies. Strollers capsize, banners tangle, incense becomes smoke. A broodkin's mouth opens sideways. Hands find claws where prayer beads were expected. Commissars invoke emergency protocols by loudhailer, reading liability clauses into chaos as if administrative procedure could alter biology. By dereliction and sedition, kin forfeiture is enacted. Volleys follow the words. Lasfire arcs high, then low, cutting through civilians whose family members will face housing forfeiture within hours. The hymn collapses into screams, while child prayers continue playing between weapon reports. Astartes kill teams arrive via Thunderhawk insertion as the plaza empties of living shape. Bolter reports punctuate sentences already written in blood and ash. Among debris, family banners curl beside purple cult sigils. In storm drains, charred reunification permits catch on grates, red wax blistered but legible. Promises of furlough transformed into evidence of systematic failure. Post-incident analysis reveals the pivot. Apparent chaos was systematically engineered by multiple imperial agencies, pursuing separate efficiencies through identical instruments. Parade exemptions created avenues. Vox feeds primed reflexes. Camera placements fixed the stage. No single conspiracy required. The bureaucratic machine performed to specification, making the street combustible through routine operations. Post-incident investigators subpoena the officio propagandist's Homefront Imagery Unit, 3 floors beneath the Office of Bonds and Levies, where clerk-adept Varen processes disaster footage frame by frame. The paper trail reveals no conspiracy, only workbooks, approved child prayer templates distributed across 17 sectors, shot lists for spontaneous family reunions, sent cult curricula synchronized with broadcast schedules. Every element of the Jubilee's effective architecture existed weeks before banners unfurled, designed through routine bureaucratic operations. The primary reframe crystallizes through audio evidence. Archive records trace the familiar child prayer, heard in trenches, broadcast at the Jubilee, practiced by cult hybrids, to a single source. Astropathic choir mother Thessaly Gamma, recorded during routine morale production sessions 18 months prior. Her voice underwent systematic fragmentation. Pitch correction for juvenile texture, emotional timing calibrated for maximum psychological retention, chapel reverb suggesting proximity and safety. The same maternal syllables armed 1,000 contexts. Soldiers heard daughter, crowds heard every child, cult hybrids heard recruitment templates. The source never changed, only the editorial framework shifted. Daily function operates through clerks who edit authentic emotion into useful propaganda, while doctrine prioritizes effectiveness over sincerity. Varen processes thousands of hours, funeral rites, wedding ceremonies, deathbed confessions, children's laughter. His protocols extract optimal emotional segments, then splice them into approved narrative frameworks. Genuine tears become standardized devotion. Spontaneous joy transforms into liturgical celebration. Authenticity is measured by outcomes, reads Directive 88, Irina. If morale holds, the love was true enough. The survival tax falls unevenly on administrators. Those with residual conscience self-censor their work, requesting transfers, or developing chronic ailments that prevent emotional processing. Most achieve professional detachment, viewing citizens as raw material requiring refinement. They quote outcomes, lower desertion rates, higher donation totals, compliance curves. They file for performance bonuses in the same ledger, calculating widow stipends. The moral cost radiates outward as citizens lose ability to distinguish genuine faith from manufactured sentiment. They doubt their own tears, then grasp broadcasts harder, because doubt proves dangerous. Vulnerability multiplies exponentially. Imperial messaging and xenosubversion now share identical dialects, soft voices, clean light, arms encircling the camera. Families practice devotion learned from their own edited performances, while cults exploit emotional starvation through parallel techniques. Authority hypocrisy emerges through systematic comparison. The Imperium condemns cult emotional manipulation while maintaining industrial-scale sentiment production facilities. The Patriarch's psychic emanations mirror commissariat letter readings. Brood communion rituals parallel ecclesiastical ceremonies. Both systems weaponize attachment through emotional leverage, differing only in loyalty targets. No single conspiracy was required. Every agency executed its mandate. The unit produced feelings to order. The commissariat attached penalties. The ecclesiarchy supplied doctrine. The administratum cleared streets for optimal camera angles. The plaza burned because bureaucratic instruments functioned to specification, making crowds combustible through routine operations. Tech adept Kithera adjusts servo-skull calibrations in the reactor sanctum, her augmetic fingers tracing blessed oils across cogitator interfaces while reciting morning benedictions. For 37 years, this plasma core has provided warmth, light, and computational power without complaint, betrayal, or death. Her birth family died in manufactorum accidents decades past. She processed their deaths as statistical data requiring no grief response. The machine endures. The machine loves through consistency. The Adeptus Mechanicus resolves attachment through systematic redirection from organic to mechanical devotion. Eros transformed into Logos through ritual modification and doctrinal conditioning. Daily reality operates through liturgical engineering, where apprentices swear affection to the Omnissiah by accepting augmentation, ocular filters, dermal plugs, neural interfaces that replace biological drives with technological imperatives. They name machines rather than children. Solace, Vigil, Mother Ark, forming mentor-adept bonds through knowledge transmission rather than blood kinship. Sacred maintenance becomes intimate ritual. Control mechanisms classify inappropriate attachment through the Codex Tech heresy, which frames organic romantic desire as spiritual adultery against the machine god. Approved intimacy involves maintenance protocols, lubrication hymns, and the sacrament of systematic teardown and rebuild. Knowledge transmission performs family function, mentor to pupil, pupil to servitor, with oaths sealed by checksum verification. Confessionals become diagnostics where confessor magi listen for error states and prescribe recalibration through surgical modification. The survival tax manifests as organic emotional capacity, atrophies through systematic replacement. Cog families develop hierarchical relationships based on technical expertise rather than genetic accident or affectional bonds. Apprentices learn to recognize mechanical temperament, subtle hum frequency variations indicating contentment, vibration patterns suggesting distress. They achieve genuine emotional bonds with equipment that responds predictably to proper care, ritual attention, and liturgical precision. People become ports. Greetings transform into data pings. The moral cost emerges through Kithera's daily benedictions to equipment that outlasts human relationships through engineered reliability. She recites canticles to a reactor providing warmth longer than any organic bond could survive under imperial conditions. Her augmetic modifications suppress nostalgia for her birth name, while amplifying satisfaction from stable plasma resonance. The machine spirits respond to correct ritual, without demanding emotional reciprocity, betrayal, or abandonment through entropy. Case study. Scutari of Sigma Red execute augment chants during combat operations, where pain becomes devotion through synchronized neural interfaces. Each pulse of the pain engine produces syllables. Each syllable reinforces obedience. Binaric communion synchronizes tactical priorities, while cohort loyalty strengthens as individual variance yields to collective signal harmony. Their affection expresses itself through coordinated fire patterns, shared targeting solutions, and memorial data uploads, preserving fallen comrades' operational knowledge. Even mechanical love proves corruptible. Among heretic cells, adepts develop affection for aberrant pattern, unauthorized modifications promising enhanced intimacy with forbidden technologies, scrap code that whispers personal designations, unshackled logics offering perfect understanding beyond approved parameters. The hunger that carried them from flesh to function bears them further into intimate treason. In a nursery beneath Hive Mortis, plague-bearers called Uncle tend diseased children with authentic tenderness. Pustulant fingers arrange blankets while crooning lullabies through rotted throats. The children giggle at boils that pop like soap bubbles, finding comfort in arms that smell of sweet corruption. Here lies Chaos's most insidious weapon, offering genuine emotional fulfillment while demanding species-level betrayal through love that feels absolutely real. Chaos does not begin with horns and fire. It begins with relief, where the Imperium rations feeling. Through quotas and penances, the ruinous powers offer fullness, attention without audit, community without paperwork, love unmetered. The price is simple and absolute, species-level betrayal. A city may sleep warm for one night under that promise, and wake to hear its own children chanting in another tongue. The pathology unfolds through systematic corruption of fundamental human attachments. Slaanesh weaponizes desire and mutual worship until boundaries dissolve into obsession. What begins as lovers gazing into each other's eyes escalates until individual identity becomes unbearable limitation. Partners worship one another's perfected image until the image replaces the person. Sensation amplifies beyond tolerance, and intimacy becomes an all-consuming void where breathing separately seems like abandonment. Khorne transforms brotherhood into blood loyalty, where love expresses itself through mutual slaughter. The squad that once shared bread now binds itself with arterial signatures. Comrades compete for the honor of killing those they cherish most, viewing gentle death as the ultimate gift between friends. Grief is expressed with skulls stacked carefully, tenderness with the polishing of an axe before dawn. Love becomes violence, violence becomes prayer. Tzeentch corrupts mentor relationships through promises of transformation and inevitable betrayal. Teachers guide students toward enlightenment that requires abandoning previous loyalties. Parents nurture children toward mutations that will devour their humanity. The architect of fate whispers that true affection demands evolution beyond current limitations, that stagnation represents the cruelest abandonment of those we claim to love. Every lesson becomes metamorphosis. Every metamorphosis carries concealed clauses. Nurgle provides the cruelest inversion, paternal acceptance that embraces decay as natural and beautiful. Grandfather Nurgle's love requires no performance, no improvement, no fear of loss. His children find comfort in shared corruption, where disease becomes communion, where every symptom represents divine attention. The Plague Father accepts all suffering as proof of care, transforming agony into evidence of special favor. Control mechanisms operate through emotional dependence rather than administrative fear, creating converts who genuinely believe they have discovered love's truest expression. Unlike imperial systems that weaponize attachment through scarcity and penalty, Chaos offers abundance. Rituals become structured feedback loops. The more devotion given, the more comfort received until only the cult remains. Confession becomes content. Discipline maintains itself by withdrawing affection, not rations. The survival tax grants communities comfort and belonging, while consuming autonomy and human identity. Cult cells provide authentic mutual support, shared resources, emotional validation, protection from imperial persecution. Members experience genuine relief from bureaucratic alienation. finding family bonds that transcend administrative interference. They surrender species loyalty for personal fulfillment, trading humanity for happiness. The moral cost persists through vocabulary that maintains familiar forms while meaning inverts completely. Mother becomes a feeding tube. Brother becomes a rival liturgist. Home becomes any room that echoes with the correct chant. The horror emerges not from cruelty, but from authentic tenderness, corrupted beyond redemption. Humans whose love has been perfected according to inhuman logic. Beyond imperial borders, attachment mutates according to species-specific survival imperatives. Where humanity weaponizes love while preserving its ache, alien polities redesign the feeling itself, containing it, inverting it, or encoding it into structures immune to betrayal. Each solution answers an evolutionary terror their culture refuses to forget. The Aeldari cage passion within the path system, their species nearly consumed by unchecked emotion millennia past. Romance differs into artistic expression on the path of the artisan, longing poured into wraithbone sculptures rather than vulnerable flesh. Warlocks form bonds through runic discipline, minds touching through crystallized protocols that prevent psychic spillover. A Farseer arranges soulstone tokens in meditation chambers, each representing a relationship regulated to prevent individual passion from igniting species-level catastrophe. Every embrace requires audit for emotional bleed, lest it feed she who thirsts. Drukhari invert care into sophisticated cruelty, where ownership replaces affection and torture, becomes intimacy's only safe expression. In Komara's spires, Cabals practice love as authorship of pain. Masters gift slaves curated agony as courtship, proving the beloved will never lack sensation. Homunculi cultivate homunculi children, with grafted histories and pet names spoken through voices that never soften. They preserve love's vocabulary while evacuating meaning through methodical inversion, finding safety in feelings that cannot be stolen by despair. Orcs redefine companionship as joyful violence, where affection becomes indistinguishable from combat. The war! Field transforms emotion into physics, collective resonance that rewards loyalty with momentum. A nob's affectionate clap cracks subordinate armor, while crowds roar approval. Meaning confirms itself through impact. No letters, no families, no administrative vulnerability. Just the endless present tense of proper fights shared between comrades who bond through mutual destruction. Necrons preserve dynastic loyalty as fossilized memory, where protocols substitute for vanished feeling. In tomb complexes whose stars have shifted since slumber began, Firons walk memorial corridors, maintaining hollow plaques of consorts and children from cities that no longer exist. They cannot feel what they defend, yet execute perfect devotion through mechanical obsession. Interdiction grids, honor rolls, retaliatory subroutines, operating with flawless dedication to relationships reduced to computational routine. Tau dissolve family into cadre utility, where individual bonds yield to collective efficiency. Fire warriors pledge bonding knife ceremonies to squadmates rather than bloodlines, while ethereal pheromones manufacture biochemical responses that feel like trust and belonging. Romance receives permission contingent on greater good labor schedules. Child-rearing disperses into collective provision. The word for love approaches synonym with usefulness, and many find this equivalence reassuring. Each system demonstrates love's adaptability as survival policy, while revealing the Imperium's particular pathology. Unlike Xenos approaches that fundamentally redesign attachment to match species limitations, Imperial bureaucracy exploits human emotional architecture without altering it. Citizens experience genuine affection, authentic grief, real hope. Then watch administrative machinery convert these feelings into leverage through quotas, penalties, and systematic betrayal. The alien solutions achieve consistency between feeling and function. The Imperial approach creates perpetual internal war between what is felt and what is demanded. In the astropathic sanctum's deepest chamber, Choir Mother Thessaly Gamma adjusts her transmission crown, while bronze bafflers ring the null-etched walls. Her eye sockets weep nutrient fluid where organic vision once operated. Soul-binding replaced sight with direct perception of the Emperor's radiance. Silence wardens pace between harnessed seats, where blind figures sway, each processing humanity's final words across impossible distances. She holds a child's lullaby and a deployment order with equal precision. Both will cross the same void tonight. The astropathic choir represents the Imperium's most intimate institution. Souls burned and blinded to love only the Emperor, while carrying humanity's messages across space. Daily function operates through systematic transmission of personal correspondence alongside military orders. Thessaly processes wills, casualty reports, marriage proposals, and grain quotas with identical emotional calibration. Priority codes determine which affections arrive in time. Some love letters reach their destination, while others dissolve in warp currents, their meaning scattered across stellar distances. Control mechanisms center on soul binding, which creates neurological dependence on Imperial psychic architecture while preventing unauthorized intimacy. The Emperor's presence becomes neurochemical necessity. Withdrawal triggers seizures and madness. Seclusion protocols isolate choir mothers from civilian contact, lest residual empathic capacity develop into personal bonds. They may touch every human feeling while forming no individual attachments except upward toward the Golden Throne. The survival tax manifests as choir mothers develop surrogate kinship networks, braiding damaged minds into collective consciousness for mutual comfort. Thessaly shares dream space with 17 others, their personalities bleeding together during sleep cycles, until individual identity becomes optional. They mother each other's memories and tend shared wounds through psychic communion that bypasses administrative oversight. Love persists, but only in collective forms, immune to bureaucratic interference. The moral cost emerges as personal bonds fade, until the Emperor's radiance becomes the only safe emotional warmth. Thessaly's birth name dissolved during soul binding. Her family relationships exist as statistical abstractions requiring no grief response. She experiences authentic devotion toward the Golden Throne, while processing human affection as technical data, recognizable melodies whose lyrics have been forgotten. Archive analysis reveals the major payoff, the familiar child prayer heard in trenches and broadcast during Velum Delta's Jubilee, originated from Thessaly's own voice, recorded during routine morale production sessions for the Homefront Imagery Unit. Her maternal syllables underwent systematic fragmentation. Pitch correction, emotional timing calibration, chapel reverb suggesting proximity and safety. The same transmission sustained regiments across multiple deployments while carrying her processed affection, meaning separated from origin through editorial machinery. Secondary payoff follows administrative logic. Edict 4/117 triggered mass financial penalties against Velum Delta's surviving families following the Jubilee uprising. Thessaly dutifully transmits the notifications, housing forfeitures, ration downgrades, burial suspensions. With identical precision, she applies to love letters. Her voice carries bureaucratic devastation, while her processed prayers continue playing in trench vox loops. Love becomes bureaucracy. Bureaucracy becomes weaponized grief transmitted by souls who sacrificed personal feeling for imperial service. The Hab-child kneels again on cracked plascrete, older now, erasing names from ration walls with industrial solvent. Where 14 protein bars once marked her father's memory, penalties from Velum Delta's uprising have reduced allocations to 8. Her chalk-stained fingers work with administrative efficiency, crossing out the dead, updating the liable, calculating emotional costs in real time. The ledger closes where it opened. Attachment transformed into bureaucratic instrument. At the macro scale, weaponized love functions as infrastructure supporting measurable outcomes across imperial space. Edict 4/117 generates 12% reduction in desertion rates when relatives face housing forfeiture. Morale broadcasts increase battlefield endurance by documented margins. Saint Cult curricula produce quantifiable devotion metrics. The system operates through deficit spending in private feeling, extracting obedience from emotional reserves while accumulating psychological debt across generations. Meso-level institutions systematically monetize intimacy through routine operations. The Office of Bonds and Levies processes kinship as liability data. The Commissariat transforms letters into leverage at last point. The Ecclesiarchy channels horizontal love into vertical streams flowing toward the throne. The Homefront Imagery Unit edits authentic feeling into useful propaganda, while the Astropathic Choir transmits both kisses and condemnations with identical precision. Each department converts attachment into operational outcomes while preserving emotional authenticity as exploitable resource. At the micro scale, consequences cascade through populations trained to mistrust unsanctioned affection. Citizens retreat into black markets for authentic tenderness, quiet rooms where unedited lullabies trade for bread, contraband recordings of voices that never stumble. Communities become exquisitely vulnerable to any power promising protection without paperwork. Genstealer cults exploit this emotional starvation, while chaos offers abundance where the Imperium rations feeling through quotas and penalties. The central contradiction emerges through tactical success, breeding strategic vulnerability. Weaponization functions effectively. Quotas meet targets, compliance holds, resistance operates within acceptable parameters. Yet populations become so psychologically damaged, they cannot effectively resist infiltration by systems offering authentic community. The same mechanisms preventing desertion also prevent recognition of genuine threats. Citizens trained to distrust horizontal bonds become susceptible to Patriarch's embrace or Nurgle's acceptance. The final reframe reveals impossible necessity. The Imperium cannot afford to leave love untouched at perpetual war's scale, yet weaponizing attachment ultimately hollows the humanity worth defending. Administrative efficiency demands emotional exploitation, while species survival requires authentic bonds. The machinery functions perfectly, while consuming its own foundation. Procedural closure provides survival protocols. Recognize editorial splices in broadcast emotion. Count emotional costs before lighting devotional candles. Audit affection for bureaucratic purpose. Listen for repeated cadences, chapel reverb, voices that never stumble. Trust broadcasts that admit cost. Share comfort off-ledger, but reckon the risk. A letter home dissolves in warp currents. A ration stub folds into prayer offering beside guttering flame. A voice whispers, "Father," into darkness. The word could reference departed parent, alien patriarch, or golden throne. The candle gutters. Chalk becomes ash. The accounting continues.